Hi there, and welcome to an introduction to hand percussion. In this in-depth journey, we're going to take a look at the traditions, the music, the genres, the types of percussion instruments, whether it's cajón, djembe, bongos, shakers. We're going to have a look at the wide range of percussion instruments that you can get involved with and add to your percussion ensemble or your arsenal of musical weaponry. We're going to take a look at the role of hand percussion in music, in tradition, whether it's traditional African music or whether it is pop music, jazz, all types of genres. What is the role of hand percussion? Where did it come from? And how can you use it effectively in your music? I really hope that you enjoy this journey, whether you're a beginner percussionist, whether you're a drummer looking to get into percussion, hand percussion, and you don't really know where to start, or whatever it is that you're looking to add to your music, to your life. I hope that this gives you something and inspires you to move forward in that journey. So with that being said, what is hand percussion? Hand percussion is essentially a family of musical instruments that you play with your hands or your fingers. Sometimes with a stick or a mallet, you can incorporate that. Drums like the Sabar tradition in West Africa has one stick with the hand. The African talking drum, or tama, as it's called, also uses a stick. But in hand percussion, we're typically playing the drums or instrument using our actual hands, not a stick, not a brush. Hand percussion is seen in traditional African culture, in Indian culture, in South American culture, in Western culture. You get the point, it's everywhere. Hand percussion is one of the oldest forms of music and art. It has been, I guess, a thing since people decided they wanted to make a sound. Nowadays, in modern times, I guess, it's found in all types of music, whether you're playing in a drum circle, so you've just got lots of percussionists around you. Maybe you're playing in a samba ensemble, so that's very percussion orientated. Or if you're playing in traditional Scottish music, I do a lot of that. Irish music, there's a lot of percussion in that these days. Pop music, rock music, along with the drummer in a lot of big pop and rock bands, you will see a percussionist. There's many examples of that, and they might have like a percussion rig, and it really complements what the drummer's doing, and the two will work together to build the groove that supports the music that the artist is playing. So the role of the percussionist, the hand percussionist, can be crucial in a modern pop or rock ensemble, just as it has been throughout time in traditions in Africa, and or India or wherever there has been hand percussion, I find it's really interesting how that journey would have begun in such a traditional setting, and how it's morphed and evolved into what we see today in perhaps a modern percussion ensemble, or in a pop band, a rock band, whatever. Traditional music, like where I'm from in Scotland, uses a lot of hand percussion that some of which is from South America, some of which is from Africa. I say Africa generally, but there's within Africa, obviously, there's many different drumming traditions. So hand percussion really is ubiquitous in music. It's everywhere. I think it's a really interesting thing to explore, specifically if you're a drummer. When I started out as a kit player, I also got into playing percussion as well, hand percussion, and I'm really grateful that I did just that. Now let's take a look at some of the hand percussion instruments that you might encounter on your journey into hand percussion. The djembe. So the djembe is a very well-known hand percussion instrument. It comes from West Africa and typically can be found in traditions from the likes of Ghana, Senegal, Gambia, etc. All down that west coast of Africa, you can find the origin of the djembe. For the most part, within a lot of those cultures. There's three main tones to the djembe: the bass tone, the tone, and the slap. There's many other things you can do with the djembe and that people have now developed, but traditionally it's those three tones. And out with traditional African drumming culture, the djembe really has transported itself around the world, or people have brought the djembe around the world, and people are using it in many different types of music nowadays. And it's a very versatile drum. It's got a wide palette of sound for just being one drum. It's a goblet drum. There's many types of goblet drums, such as the darabuka, the doumbek, found in the Middle East. But I guess the djembe fundamentally really is very identifiably West African. Now let's talk about congas. Congas are personally one of my favorite percussion instruments, one of my favorite hand drums. They really sing, and especially if you get them in tune and you've got more than one conga. Three, I think, is my favorite, having the conga with the quinto and the tumba. So what do I mean by this? So the congas are typically found in Cuba, in South American music, but the Cuban conga tradition really is at the heart of things. And the congas are found uniquely at the heart of many modern bands' percussion setups. You'll see a rack of congas in front of the percussionist. But traditionally, congas are played in rumba, in salsa, in merengue, in Latin music. It is very much the heartbeat of Latin music, I would say, is the conga. Generally, you get the quinto, which is the small one. You get the conga, which is like the mid one, and the tumba, which is the low one. And you tune them accordingly, and making sure that they sing together in the right way and that they sound perfect tonally together. So now let's move on to the bongos. Bongos are the sort of little brother of the congas, in the way that they also feature heavily in like Cuban ensembles and a lot of Latin American traditions. You'll hear the bongos alongside congas in rumba, in salsa, and in a lot of Cuban music, Afro-Cuban music. But the bongos themselves, they're kind of like a really high pitch version of a conga. I know that people might execute me in the comments for saying that, but I think that is what you might want to think of them as, is like the little brother. Although they really do stand out in their own right, and they can be used in their own way as well. They don't just have to be played with the congas. Now let's move on to the cajón. I'm sure many of you know that the cajón has very much been at the heartbeat of my YouTube channel and much of what I've done. So I definitely have a sweet spot for the cajón. The cajón came into my life almost 20 years ago now, but essentially the cajón is probably one of the most popular hand percussion instruments in the world today. It originated in Peru, or coastal Peru. It's from the Afro-Peruvian tradition, although it's now found in flamenco music in Spain. A really interesting story about how the cajón made it from the Afro-Peruvian tradition in coastal Peru to Spain into the flamenco tradition with the famous guitarist Paco de Lucia, and his percussionist Rubim Dantas famously brought the cajón and introduced it into that tradition. Now the cajón is very much worldwide, and even though I kind of wrestle with the idea of it being a replacement for the drum set, many people use it because it has a bass tone that sounds a bit like a bass drum and a snare tone, slap tone that sounds a bit like a snare. So you can play a lot of drum kit beats on it. And I think it's fair to say that it is good in situations where you might be playing an acoustic gig and want to replace the drum kit because you can't use it in a certain space with the cajón. It totally makes sense. Although there is a huge cajón tradition, obviously, in coastal Peru, in the Afro-Peruvian tradition, and the flamenco tradition, which I highly encourage you to check out. And if you are a budding cajón player, getting into it, learning some of these traditions, even a little bit, will just widen your scope, and it'll, I don't know, it's nice to have that respect for the tradition that any of these drums came from, and it's really interesting. So the cajón, obviously, sweet spot in my heart, but is certainly on top alongside the djembe as being probably one of the most popular and recognizable hand percussion instruments of these times. So there's a selection of hand drums that you might encounter. There's obviously literally hundreds, if not thousands, of other types of drums that you can find in hand percussion. I'm not going to go into them. I do have a video on my YouTube channel of myself and the amazing and famous world-renowned percussionist Steve Foreman, where I'm with him going around his amazing collection of percussion instruments. So I'll tag that in this video. That's worth a watch if you've got the time, because he has an incredible selection of hand percussion from all around the world. It's absolutely unbelievable. With hand percussion, we also have not drums, but things like shakers, tambourines, frame drums, which are some of the oldest instruments in percussion, the frame drum, North African, Middle Eastern percussion. You've got drums like the reek. You've got, even in Ireland, the baran is also a frame drum. So frame drums have this amazing tradition as well. But then, as I say, on top of that, we've got cowbells, we've got shakers, as I said, tambourines, blocks, amazing things that you can add to your percussion setup. And being a percussionist really is a unique opportunity. Being a hand percussionist, whether you're a kit drummer as well or not, is just such a unique opportunity to explore the world and to explore culture and get interested in different types of music, because all of that, if you're interested in creating or writing music, will filter into your music in a positive way. And you might not even realize it. So as percussionists, as hand percussionists, we really have a unique opportunity to really just explore the world of music. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope it's inspired you in some way to explore hand percussion. You don't need to know how to read music or write music. All you need is a willingness and to be up for it and ready to explore the world of percussion. Please like this video and do subscribe to my channel if you fancy it. I've got all types of drumming and hand percussion videos on the channel and lots more coming. I post almost daily now with the shorts as well, so there's a lot of value in hitting that subscribe button if you fancy it, and thank you for doing so.